Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this 28th of Thursday of May, 2020. And welcome to the show. You know what? In Minneapolis right now, there's riots going on. Okay? Now, there was a time, this isn't the first time here in America we've seen this kind of thing. It's happened before, at other times in history, And in the past, what's always happened is they have the problem and they get burned out buildings and everything, and within a week, the bulldozers, after it's over, the bulldozers come in, they level the buildings down, they cart away all the debris, and then a few weeks later, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, they're already building new buildings in the place of these old buildings. In other words, they repair all the damage. We're in a different world now, guys. Now, they might not even tear down the buildings. The buildings just burn out holes of the buildings might just stay there. Nobody even might come in to clear out the rubble or anything. They might stay there for years. We're in a depression right now. And there's just no money in it for these companies or anything. And the cities are broke. The cities and everything, that they might forestall things for months or even years before they get around to it. I mean, because they don't have any money. There's no money out there anymore. It's all been drained out of the system, and there's no money to be made in a lot of these businesses anymore, like clothing stores and things like that. They're all going broke anyway. So if a big part of your city burns, it could be any disaster. It could be a hurricane. Could take out part of your city. It's probably just going to stay like that, not get rebuilt for a period of time, because that's the condition that we're moving into really fast right now. Because the economy's broke, and so you should consider these things, take them into consideration. Another thing is there's going to be a new phenomenon starting pretty soon, and I'm just going to call it a heat dome. A heat, H-E-A-T-D-O-M-E, heat dome. It's when a high-pressure dome builds, and it's what we used to call a heat wave, starts to form, and it floats over a certain region with intensely hot temperatures. These heat domes are going to get more frequent, I think, and they're going to get worse. They're going to get, now there's a critical level, and, in the past, we've always had these heat domes. They call them heat waves. And they get up just about to the point where they start to actually cause huge problems for the elderly or people who have breathing problems and things like that. But then they take it right up to that edge, the heat wave, and then they kind of back off a little bit. But I think a new phenomenon is going to be coming, that these heat waves go a few degrees higher than they used to. And the reason why I'm saying that is we're having one right now in India. 50 degrees Celsius. 50 degrees Celsius. Let that sink in for a little bit. But I don't think this is going to be out of place. I think we're going to get more of these type of heat domes that are going to go up to like 50, maybe 55, maybe even 60 degrees Celsius. And as they float over a region, they're going to cause huge problems for the residents. Can you imagine if the heat domes go up to like 60 degrees Celsius? This says extra 10 degrees, from 50 to 60. And it becomes not a heat dome anymore. It becomes almost like a death ray, moving over your region. I mean, this is a new phenomenon. It's not really a new phenomenon, but it's a phenomenon that's becoming more exaggerated. And I think the opposite side of this is hurricanes. I think hurricanes are going to start to get stronger. I think they only categorize them up to a level 5 as the max. I think they're going to have to make a new category, a level 6. I think hurricanes are going to start to get stronger too. So our weather patterns here are out of whack in the world. But the Earth goes through these cycles. It's went through these cycles. We had an ice age in the past, and that was a cycle. The Earth goes through these cycles. we have to learn to adapt to it. Anyway, let's get started. Let's open up the charts right here, and let's take a look at what's going on. The first thing we're going to take a look at is silver. Silver's up 17 cents on the day, 17.41, and looking good. I'm going to tell you guys, there's a little deflation that could be just ahead. I don't think it's going to last long because I think the Fed's going to step in. But it could negatively affect the silver price, gold price, and crypto price. And really, all it would really do is it would create a buying opportunity for the people who are in the know, you know. But I don't think it's going to last very long. I think the Fed's going to step in and squash it if we do get any significant amount of deflation. But I think a deflationary event could be coming, you know, caused by this virus. It's in the after effects of this virus. It's probably going to be another 6 months to a year before we're finally rid of this virus, you know. And we're weathering through the worst parts of it right now, you know. We're weathering through it, you know. The first initial wave was probably the biggest. I don't know. Maybe the second wave will be pretty big too. We'll have to wait and see. But we're weathering through it. Is what we're doing. We go, you got to keep calm heads, because we don't keep a calm head. You know, I mean, this is important in this point in time, is to keep calm heads. Anyway, I know there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of pressure on everybody right now because we're going through a pandemic. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying. That's going to cause tremendous stress on the population. Okay, I don't know how I got talking about that, but let's talk about gold now. 17.20 for gold. So what we see is we see the historically high gold to silver ratio is continuing. Gold's up $10.40 today. Let's take a look at cryptocurrencies. 262 billion for the industry, 66.3% Bitcoin dominance, 94.54 for Bitcoin today. So Bitcoin, gold, and silver right now are in a holding pattern. It's like they're waiting for something. They're in a holding pattern. It's like they are waiting for something. And I think what they're waiting for is this deflationary thing that's just, it's like right there. Because the markets have not really priced in the full extent of the situation that we find the world in right now. And this is why we might get a little bit of a deflationary shock when the markets and everybody starts to realize, hey, you know what? The world is really messed up right now, you know? And then they start to price that in, and then the central banks are going to have to come in to the rescue again, you know, and create even more money. It's just a vicious cycle that we're in right now. Let's take a look at the Dow Jones today. And it's up 96 points on the day right now. Now the Dow now has entered into this holding cycle now too. It's kind of topped out and it's kind of in a little bit of a holding cycle. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Dow go a little bit sideways for a little bit, and I'm half expecting it to drop off after it goes sideways just for a little bit. And you know, when this deflation starts to come home to roost, I'm expecting the Dow to fall, you know. But the Fed's only going to let it fall down. They're not going to let it fall down too much below 18,000. Then they're really going to step in with some big stimulus, really big stimulus. What they have done till now, $4 trillion, that's not real big in my mind. My mind, big stimulus, we're talking somewhere between probably 8 trillion and 20 trillion additional. That's big stimulus, you know. In other words, they're going to at least probably double what they've already done, you know, and maybe even 3-4 times what they've already done to pull this economy and try to pull things out of the hole, you know. And what they're going to do is they're going to create consumer price inflation. That's what they're going to do. Eventually, they're going to create massive consumer price inflation. Let's take a look now at crude oil. Crude oil is at 32.59. It's down 22 cents on the day. Let's take a look at U.S. Treasuries. And we're looking at the middle of the yield curve falling, short end rising, and long end rising. We're looking at 1.46 on the 30-year and 0.69 on the 10-year for U.S. Treasuries. You know, the only buyer in the end of these Treasuries is going to have to be the Fed. They're going to have to step in and buy them all. What we have here is we have a situation where we have the lender of last resort, which is the Fed. And we have the buyer, the borrower of last resort, which is the United States government. And between the two of them, they have to balance themselves out. So the Fed just cannot create the money. They have to have the government borrow the money. And so if the government's not borrowing it, if they can't get their act together, if they're not bipartisan in this, and they can't get their act together, and they don't borrow enough, then what happens is the Fed can't lend enough. The Fed can lend any amount the government wants to borrow. So the Fed's like, okay, you guys, make some stuff up to borrow some money, and we'll give it to you. Here, we got the big wad of money, big wad of cash. You can have it. Just make any crap up. It doesn't matter what you want to do. You want to pave the streets with gold? Okay, here's 20 trillion more. Let's pave the streets with gold. But the government has to ask for that money. They have to want that money. Then the Fed can lend it. Now, if you get the government not asking, so you need an event. You need an event that's going to change the government and make them decide to let the money free, open the money up, open up the gates of money. Once that happens, then the Fed can give them the gates of money, and then we're into the big print. So we need that deflationary spike event to trigger the government into borrowing the big money from the Fed. That's what we need to have happen, because we need the big money to come out here to fix the problem that they created to begin with, and I don't really know if it's going to fix it, but it's going to make it better for a while. It's kicking the can down the road. And do we want to have a financial Armageddon today, or would we rather put it off for maybe another 4 or 5 more years? And this is the difference between borrowing money or not borrowing money. We can have our financial crisis today, and everything can go flat to the ground and be nothing left of anything. I mean, in the end, because everything runs on money, and you take all the money away, what's going to happen? Nothing's going to run. So, or we can keep pumping the money in, slowly hyperinflating the dollar, and have the crisis come 5 or 10 years, maybe, I don't know, how long we could keep pushing it off if we just keep creating money, but your dollar's going to be worth less and less and less and less and less. And this is why it's so important, because gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies keep up with the rate of inflation, and so they protect your purchasing power. It's not that you're going to get rich, it's that you're going to be able to keep what you have. If you're in dollars, you're not going to be able to keep what you have. It's going to be eroded away in a hidden tax. The hidden tax is inflation. So they're going to tax you to death with inflation. Anyway, okay, let's take a look at the dollar index today. 98.63. So we're looking at a falling dollar today. It's down 0.44. Thank you guys for listening to this report. Give me a thumbs up. We'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.